Hey, y'all, I struggle with this one. I'm not a political person, but I do understand politics a little bit. And I've been following politics ever since President Obama got in the House. And as I get older, I'm realizing politics is very divisive and it's very dangerous. And it's a sad situation, right? You got the Republicans, you got the Democrats, and then you got the in-betweens and the independents. And it is very divisive. And I really didn't want to talk about Charlie Kirk because I knew how divisive and how explosive the situation is. And I wasn't going to talk about it. But here's the thing. From what I understand and from my research, this young man was very destructive verbally when it came to people of color and minorities, but mainly people of color, black folks here in America. He said the worst things. And it reminds me of the 60s when I would look back in Martin Luther King days and Malcolm X days. And I remember seeing those black and white TV shows, or every once or twice a year, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X situation would come on. And I remember seeing that. And it gave me flashbacks. And I can't help but, remember when I was researching Charlie Kirk, because I ain't never heard of him before he got gunned down. I never heard of him. And I started to look up this guy, right? I didn't want to go off the original narrative. So I wanted to dig deep and figure out who is this guy. And I heard some rhetoric. He said one time, in other words, and I'm paraphrasing, so I'm not going to get it 100% right. He said if he was getting on the airplane and he saw the pilot was black, in other words, he wouldn't get on because he felt like the pilot wouldn't be qualified. And in other words, he was implying that, black folks can't fly an airplane correctly or safely. And he wouldn't get on the airplane. And there's a few other things he said too. A whole lot of things he said. And I was just like, wow. Now, honestly, I think nobody deserves to get murdered. Nobody deserves to get gunned down. But unfortunately, when you say stuff like he did, it brings unwanted bullshit your way. And I don't wish harm on anybody, not even on my worst enemy. I do unto others the way I want to be treated. And I would never want to be treated that way. But I also watch what I say. I'm not trying to piss people off. I'm not trying to bring out the worst in people. Because I do know if I do what I can to bring out the worst in people, I'm going to F around and find out. Now, this situation, to me, has changed everything about America now. Not because this young man got gunned down, or not just because he got gunned down, but because he got gunned down because he was using his First Amendment, I believe, freedom of speech. Now, I disagree with everything he said. And I think it was terrible. I think it was racist. And it brought out the worst in America. He really did a number on this country. But it's bigger than him getting murdered. By him getting murdered, it said a lot about America, and it actually set the tempo to where people like me, right, who has a YouTube platform, which is a small YouTube platform, but anybody who has a platform and anybody who speaks out, whether people agree with it or not, you could possibly get gunned down or murdered in any kind of way. And this is where America's going. And this is what happened once Charlie Kirk got gunned down. It's bigger than what he said. They're taking away our rights where we can't even talk. It's bigger than this European guy getting murdered. The powers that be is using this man's murder to keep everybody silent. So you better get everything out while you can, because they about to change the game, and the game is technically already changed. We're not going to be able to speak on anything very soon, and I hope that I'm wrong. And even if you speak something that's right, you can still be deleted for speaking up. And if you say something wrong, obviously you can get deleted. So what they want, the powers that be, is for you to shut up. Keep your mouth shut. And those people that's running America, talking about the president and the vice president, we ain't gonna have no rights. He talking about changing the Constitution, changing everything. And I'm gonna be honest, they're gonna make it, or they're trying to make it to where it only helps who? White folks. Minorities, we're screwed. And we always been screwed. Jim Crow took place because white folks were scared to speak up. Black folks were scared to speak up. And slavery took place for the same thing, because white folks were scared and they were benefiting from slavery. Black people were scared also, because it wasn't just in America, it wasn't just black slaves. There were free blacks also in America. And they were scared. And then the slaves were definitely scared, because they would lose a foot or a hand if they tried to escape, or if they tried to dismantle the system. This is what happens when everybody's scared and they fall in line. In other words, keeping their mouth shut. Europeans, white people was getting benefits from keeping their mouth shut. I'm not saying all white people, because obviously there was good white people also, or very few in the grand scheme of things in the slavery days. But they did help, according to history and my research. Some did help. I wouldn't be surprised the vice president and the president slowly but surely starts heading in that direction. And they're already doing it. They're already doing it. There's a possibility there will be no more voting, because he's going to stay in there. A dictatorship. I see the handwriting on the wall. Let's keep it 100. Let's be real. And this is why I said in a lot of my videos in the past, if you look at my archives, that we need to band together, no matter what race you are, because this system is screwing everybody. But there are some that are benefiting from the bullshit. And again, I don't condone violence. I don't condone knocking somebody off because they said the wrong thing or the right thing. People are scared. And the more people that are scared, the more this system, this monstrous system, is going to take over. And next thing you know, we won't know who the hell we are or what we're doing because we're being controlled. They turning us into automatons, robots, where we can't speak up, where we're scared to speak up. They made it to where the president, to where military people couldn't use their platform and speak on Charlie Kirk's situation. And I get it. Some people were happy and excited. There were some people happy and excited with George Floyd. And nothing happened to them. Nobody got fired from their job. And I think J.D. Vance, the vice president, is saying regarding the workforce, you employees, if you hear someone talking mess or speaking up on their opinion regarding Charlie Kirk, and if they say something negative or they deem that's negative, to go ahead and rat on them and tell the employer so they can get fired. But when black people were getting killed left and right, there was none of this. But when one of their own get killed by their own people, it wasn't a minority who knocked off Charlie Kirk. It was his own people. And then the Republicans want to attack the Democrats when the Democrats had nothing to do with it. When minorities had nothing to do with it. This was y'all people. And then some of our people, some of our black folks say this ain't our fight. I agree with it halfway, and then the other half, I disagree. The reason why I agree on one end that it's not our fight is because this is between them, right? It's white on white crime. But if you look at the big picture, the grand scheme of things, they slowly but surely taking away our rights through this situation that took place. You can't even really talk about this on your platform. Eventually, I know they're going to go after YouTube, and people like me who's speaking up on it will eventually, they'll cut us loose or harass us or whatever. But I don't care, because at the end of the day, I'm a man and I'm going to speak up. Now, there's a time to be silent and there's a time to speak up. And this is the time to speak up. I'm not pushing violence. I don't think nobody should be murdered for their beliefs. This is why we need to band together. Everybody got different ways of thinking. I don't agree with a lot of people, but I don't want to hurt them. And I ain't trying to hurt them. And me personally, I wasn't happy when he got knocked off. There was no happiness there because I seen the big picture. Also, I don't want to see somebody get murdered because I think about me. I think about my family. I think about people I know. But he did say some really bad things. and he messed around and found out. We need to come together, and we need to start teaching our kids, which I do. Watch what you say. Watch what you say. Because you could say the wrong thing and it puts you in a situation where you wish you never said it. Now, some may say, well, you're communicating, you're talking. Yes, I'm talking and I'm communicating. I'm not debating y'all. And there's nothing wrong with a debate. But there's a difference between going deep and cutting people up verbally, opposed to talking about the situation and talking about the elephant in the room and how this needs to change. So this can stop, because there's a possibility this is going to go on and on and on. It's like the Crips and the Bloods. The Crip kills the Blood and the Blood kills the Crip, and it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Revenge, revenge, revenge. We need to stop. This is sad. We need to make things change. And the only way things are going to change is that we band together. Yes, we do need to talk about it. But it can't be if the person says the wrong thing, whether he black, white, Spanish, whatever, that they get gunned down. Because by this happening, there's a strong possibility nobody's going to be able to say much of anything. We're going to be controlled. Drop a comment in the comment section, whether you guys agree or disagree. I don't really care, but I do want to hear you guys' opinions and thoughts. I really didn't want to talk about this because I knew how explosive the situation is. But we can't let these people scare us and to push us into silence. We got to speak truth to power. This is Mike, keeping it simple and precise.